What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you on Polestar. I want to go over some of the current data points, what's been coming out from the company itself, and with their Q3 earnings coming right around the corner, so tomorrow after hours, I want to give you an overview of what to expect from it. Before I get into any of that though, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So a lot of volatility today. So 216, the low, 226 is the high, which does coincide with the technicals. I'll break that down for you in a second. We're just about to enter into power hour, so hopefully there's a nice little bump up as a result of that. But 1.4 million shares being traded, 2.8 is the average, so a little bit low today. At the time of doing this video, no SEC filings. There was some news that did come out yesterday, which gave it a nice boost in the stock price, but in reality, it's not all that great, kind of. They'll at least be able to use this as a talking point for their upcoming earnings. But Polestar signs agreement with SK for Polestar 5 batteries, which based on my research is fairly good. It does have a little bit lower of a cost point, so that definitely is a big thing, because no matter what, the batteries are the heavy hitters for the price, right? For every single EV that's out there, majority of the cost is associated to the battery. So who knows, that might be a good thing, but I'll just leave it to obviously the experts during the upcoming Q3 earnings for them to break that down. So in case you do not know, it is coming out on November the 8th after hours. I am planning on live streaming that if you are interested. So if you want to kind of listen in, let me know in the comments below, which in reality, I think this is probably the first Polestar earnings since I've started to cover it for basically about a year that they've done it after hours. Normally 9 times out of 10, it is extremely early, so I have to wake my ass up at like 6 a.m. to live stream that. So I think this is a little bit more of a breath of fresh air, the fact that it's after hours. But as well, one thing that they are doing for their earnings, they're giving the opportunity for retail to pose questions to management. And you do have a couple hours left, so you have up until November 7th at 4 p.m. Central Time to pose any questions. But based on the votes, I don't think you'll make top 3. And typically, I think they answer around the first 5 questions. So the first question that's most likely they will ask is, as an investor, what can we look forward to the stock achieving and your further rollout of great vehicles to a larger demand, and how are you going to be creating that demand? Second question, what is your plans to stop the short-term bleeding? And this one, what can we expect to see production from the South Carolina facility, and what impact will it have on the company? So Lucid's Q3 earnings is today after hours, so pretty much by the time you're going to be watching this video. And a lot of the questions that retail is posing to that set of management is basically the same thing. People just want to know about production to see if there's going to be any disruption, at least in the foreseeable future, that the management can say, as well, what is management's concern, or what are they going to be doing when it comes to the stock price? So ultimately, that's what investors' concerns are with Lucid, as well with Polestar. But when it comes down to expectations for this upcoming earnings, looking at the earnings per share, it looks like one analyst recently jumped on board, a little bit bearish because it went from -14 to -15 cents for the earnings per share. But going into the earnings, there's about 2 analysts that gave estimates, like I said, with the consensus of that -15 cents per share. But even if you look for the foreseeable future, analysts don't anticipate Polestar to really improve. So that's a little bit more concerning if you ask me. But keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. Looking at revenue though, even zooming out, this is a nice kind of expectations for the foreseeable future for revenue, just not really seen with earnings per share. Going into tomorrow's earnings, it looks like one analyst recently jumped on board, which once again, it was very bearish. So it went from 794 million to 705 million being the expected Q3 revenue. So once again, not necessarily the best. And looking at some of the recent analyst ratings, looks like there was one done about 6 days ago from Piper Sandler, Alex Potter, who does have a 45% success rating, who gave a $3 price target. So most likely with that new analyst rating coming down the pipeline, they are the individual that gave bearish earnings per share and bearish revenue estimates. But of course, I could be wrong. There's no way for us to really tell based on that. Looking at some of the data points as of right now, though, starting off with the latest round of 13Fs, you do see some institutions still mixed results. So you see some increasing roughly around 99,000, some green ones, so brand new positions, and all of this did occur essentially during Q3. And you do see some kind of reducing. So it's all over the place. And surprisingly, even though Polestar doesn't have that much interest coming from institutions and typically is a little bit lower volume, I am pleasantly surprised by the majority of institutions that either are getting in or increasing their positions. So once again, that's kind of a good thing if you want to think about it like that. But options, let's talk about options. 6,500 in calls versus 6,100 in puts. So very much evenly divided. So of course, going into their earnings tomorrow, people don't necessarily know what is going to come from that. And looking at the specific call options though, it is anticipated if you are bullish that it's going to be above around $2.50. So again, that's kind of a good thing. But if you are negative on Polestar, it is anticipated to be below $1.50. So a little bit more of a breakdown on the technicals. But as it stands with it at $2.22, it's kind of stuck in a pivot point right now. So $2.21 is that pivot. So potentially $2.07 is a very strong support. Vice versa, $2.34 is going to be that next strong resistance. So as it stands, it's kind of flirting with this pivot point. So we don't necessarily know if it's going to be trading between this S1 and the pivot or pivot and R1. We'll just have to wait and see what happens as a result during the power hour. But in reality, I do feel that Polestar might have a little bit negative of earnings, especially considering a lot of the data that's been coming out from consumers has shown signs of cracking, especially in the States. And I know that's one market they were really trying to get into just because of the currency conversion and many other things that obviously hasn't been that successful in it. But I do feel that there's going to be a little bit more of a further downtrend to occur. So in my opinion, I think that the actual earnings will result in it touching this S2, so which is $1.98, which is that 52-week and all-time low. So in my opinion, I think Polestar definitely is going to do a lot of good things in the long term, but in the short term, I think there's going to be a little bit more pain. But once again, I wish I would be absolutely wrong about this. Polestar bounces to $3 at least, or if not higher as a result of their earnings, and they raise guidance. So that would be the best case scenario. Let me know your thoughts on Polestar in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And give yourself a shout out in the comments if you have been buying, selling, holding. What have you been doing with Polestar? And one final thing, take advantage of some free promos, and that is with Moomoo. So sign up for an account with Moomoo, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. Plus, you get 1 free share of SoFi, and any cash that you do have in this account, you are earning 5.1% APY. So this in reality is a win-win. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, let's all make a ton of money eventually, whenever that might be, on Polestar.